Welcome to the premiere episode of We'll Bring the Popcorn. I'm Brad, this is Josh, and we're just two guys who really love to talk about entertainment.
It's episode 1. We made it.
We made it. We're here.
So like Brad mentioned, we're two best friends that like to go to see films in the theater. We love watching TV shows. We love talking about entertainment. We love talking about news. And we're going to do that each and every week here on the podcast. So for our premiere episode, we want to bring you our top 5 favorite films of 2023 and also look ahead to the year in film and TV in 2024.
Yeah, so you want to get down into it and talk
Absolutely.
about a little news?
Let's just jump into it. Why not? Let's talk about some stuff.
Well, so one of the biggest stories last week was Steven Yeun has left the Thunderbolts. So the Thunderbolts is one of the latest movies from Marvel, kind of give us a look at the bad guys and the guys who go kind of in between.
Sure.
Some might be bad, some might be good. They're kind of the misunderstood guys. He was going to play Sentry. That's not fully confirmed, but kind of everybody knew from the leaks and other stuff, that's who he was going to play. So it's kind of disappointing to not see him in there anymore. I enjoy him as an actor. Initially saw him in The Walking Dead and seen some of his films that's come out since then. So I'm hoping that he can have a chance to come into the MCU and play somebody else later on.
Yeah, I mean, he's mentioned in subsequent interviews now that he wants to come back and do Marvel. He's worried he might have burned the bridge. I don't necessarily think so. I think they'll find a way for him. Another thing I loved him in is Invincible on Amazon Prime, the animated series also made by Robert Kirkman. It's fantastic. It's gory. It's violent. Yep. Very well told story. I enjoy that as well. But yeah, I mean, the MCU's kind of going through like this whole up and down, like, did they peak in Endgame? What are they doing now? What's the direction moving forward? There was a lot of stuff with Jonathan Majors earlier this year as well. But Steven Yeun dropping out of this, which is basically the Thunderbolts are, for those that don't know, kind of Marvel's equivalent of the Suicide Squad in a way. Yeah. It's kind of like the anti-hero. Are they villains? Are they heroes? They're kind of good guys that do bad things, kind of story that they're going to tell. And I'm excited for the film. It's going to be I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's a fun story that they could tell that hasn't really been told necessarily yet outside of the comic book world as well. So I'm looking forward to that, but it's kind of a bummer that Steven Yeun, with the whole strike and everything messing with a lot of the production schedules, now he can't do it. Yeah. It's one of those things that it's kind of an unfortunate situation, but I'm still confident that the film's going to be good, but it does suck that he's leaving. Yeah.
As like you said, with the strikes, it's kind of tossed all of the schedules really crazy out the window. Projects that have been in the works for a while. Now you're having to see how many actors are going to have to drop out of multiple projects because they're just running into each other now.
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of stuff. Like, we'll get into it a little bit later, but there's TV shows that are finally starting to come out that we missed an entire fall season of TV because of the strike, right? So a lot of these shows that were like getting ready to premiere their mid-season, second half of their season story arcs are not going to happen. I don't know how it's going to shape out now with these shows that are getting ready to come back, after the Super Bowl. Like, a lot of these networks are launching their regular TV programs again. And does it leak into the summer? Are they shortened seasons? It's only going to be a 12-episode season instead of a 22-episode season, or however many they wind up having. Like, it's going to be a very interesting time in the TV landscape.
And TV and film, for sure. How it all goes. Just a lot of schedule changes.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see how it all shakes out and where people who may have been involved in certain projects are now not, and who gets to jump in and take that place. A lot of shuffling. How is casting going to work for a lot of this stuff? I know Fantastic Four has been impacted by multiple things as well, just kind of piggybacking off of, the Marvel theme. The Fantastic Four is one we're looking forward to very much to see who gets locked in for that. Another character that I think is up in the air a little bit as far as like the future of is Harley Quinn, which kind of leads into our next topic, right? So Margot Robbie in particular is possibly ready to move on from the role. With James Gunn rebooting the DC universe now, she's come out and said that, she's envisioned multiple people playing this character and she may be ready to move on. It's not confirmed. She may wind up walking back in. I know we're getting ready to see Lady Gaga and Joker 2, but could this be the end for a character she's played for quite a while? I mean, she's kind of killing it right now. What do you think about it?
It's a thing, like her, and she already had some star power building for a while now, but after the mega hit that was Barbie last year, her schedule is going to be filling up a whole lot more. There's going to be a lot more demand on her. Like, I loved her as Harley Quinn. I think she did such a great job in the limited, but we all know, those who follow the DC universe and everything else, that it was a little bit of a mess. There was a little bit of disconnect. We had 2 Suicide Squad movies that with similar but also different cast. And would it be the best thing going forward that we get somebody else, even though she's done a fantastic job? Do they need to move on and recast a lot of these characters that they wanted to redo because they're trying to do a full reboot?
Yeah, it's hard, especially when a character like that becomes so like iconic in pop culture. Like, how many of those Margot Robbie, Harley Quinn, Halloween costumes have you seen? And now if you put a ton of them, right? So if you put somebody else in that role, does it get accepted by a mass audience at that point? It's the whole Batman Joker debate, right? Like, who does the best version of the same character? Everybody kind of puts their own spin on it. What's the future of that character hold? I don't know. I'm looking forward to Lady Gaga in the Joker, and we'll talk about that a little bit as we get a little bit later into the episode. But yeah, I mean, it could be the end of an era there for Margot Robbie in the DC universe, but she may wind up coming back. You don't know. So I'm kind of excited to see how it all plays out.
The other thing that was big with Barbie last year was AI. Kind of took off. We're seeing it everywhere. And now we have Warner Brothers announcing that they're partnering with an AI company to bring the Ready Player One Oasis universe into, virtual reality, which, did they watch the movie? I mean, the point of it was that, it could be interesting to check out, but it's one of those weird things, like, you're doing something that was kind of, the books and the movies are all about how it's wrong. So it'd be interesting to see how they do that, and if they can actually give us something, because we also know, if you've watched the movie, if you've read the books, that there's a lot of different movies and film or TV shows and everything that's brought in there. Like, that's a lot of licensing to try to bring into an AI universe to make it feel like it matches, or you're just kind of doing a cheap imitation.
Yeah, I mean, AI is a very hot topic, and especially in the entertainment industry right now. I know that was a big talking point during the strikes. People worrying about AI potentially writing scripts and taking writers' jobs, and it was a big fight back and forth. So it's very interesting to see, like, a major studio company like Warner Brothers, and I know it's not necessarily Warner Brothers Film in particular, but the company overall just wanting to jump into this landscape and kind of make this virtual oasis. You kind of wonder what the future of artificial intelligence is going to look like and how much it's going to impact society and culture. And we're seeing it through so many different things right now, but building this virtual oasis that it's talking about that you saw in the film, like, to your point, man, there were so many red flags that came up in watching that. Like, how is this practical? How is this practical in a real world situation? You know what I mean? And the fact that they're doing it, I don't necessarily know how I feel about it, because it could be a lot of fun, but it could also have some very serious social ramifications, depending on how, like, all encompassing this could be. You know what I'm saying? So it's definitely something to keep an eye on, and the jury's still out for me, man. I kind of want to see what it's going to look like.
Yeah, I want to see what they do with it, but is it really going to have any sort of impact that's going to have people wanting to come back to it, or feel like it's tied to the game, or if it's just a game and it's not tied to that book and movie universe and it's just kind of jumbled. So, I mean, we'll just have to wait and see how it works out, and it's definitely going to be interesting to see how AI impacts the entertainment industry going forward.
Yeah, for sure. And for this thing in particular, I have so many unanswered questions when it comes to this, because it like you said, socially, do people get lost in this thing? Do people get, like, so involved in it that they just completely detach from reality? What kind of mental health?
We've got Facebook and Meta that tried to do the metaverse and within AI, and it didn't exactly take off. So it really depends on their implementation and how they connect with the audience they're trying to go to. And they're trying to get the film and TV and video game people together in this universe. So it really depends on how they can bring it all together.
Right. I don't know, man. I'm cautiously optimistic about this. Like, I want it to be cool. The idea in theory sounds super cool, but it's also very terrifying at the same time. So it's like,
this is how you get Skynet.
This is exactly how you get Skynet. And what kind of forces that, are we working with here? Like, what's gonna happen? But, we'll reserve full judgment until we kind of see what all is going to come out of it and what all it goes into. Do you know Any idea on like what kind of time frame they put on it?
I don't know if they gave a time frame or not, but normally with this kind of stuff, it might be a year or two out, but I didn't see them exactly mention when we could expect to really dive into this, because it's something that a lot of people will be waiting for, but a lot of people like us are going to be a little skeptic on what it can provide and do.
Yeah, because it sounds like something that may not necessarily come in a year, but it's one of those things they're hoping to have out by 2030 because they want to take time and perfect. You just never know.
Might have the second movie out before we get this AI universe.
Yeah, might have to push judgment on that till we probably do a little more research, or if they have a little more information. But if you have any thoughts, please comment and let us know. I know one story in particular that really is getting a lot of traction right now, though, is the fact that Best Buy is removing physical media from their stores. It's kind of the end of an era, right? So with everything being streaming nowadays, the day of going to stores like Best Buy or Walmart or wherever you pick up your movies is going away, at least from Best Buy's perspective. Mm-hmm. I know you can still go and buy physical media at Walmart, but Best Buy, they were synonymous with, going and buying movies and video games. And now what is it going to be? Is it going to be appliances and TVs only? Like, do you really want to go buy a refrigerator from Best Buy? Like, I don't know. I don't do that, but it's interesting to see what their business model is now. It's like, what, phones, appliances, and TVs? Like, I don't know.
I'll admit the amount of physical media I bought have been down because of the convenience of streaming and having everything out there, but I still buy some of my favorite shows, some of my favorite movies, and making sure I have those on a physical medium that I can watch whenever I want. And Best Buy was a place where I would go pick up I'd get off when I was working third shift, would go to Best Buy when they opened and buy the latest season of The Office and pick up games and movies and CDs and everything from there. But it's definitely a weird shift to see. Like, we kind of figured it was coming. Physical media purchasing has been down quite a bit, but it is still at the same time just not to have the option there at all anymore at their stores is going to be interesting to see how their customer base reacts and if that's something that might actually hurt them more than it helps them. At first, everything will have that down period and then it'll pick up like, well, this is a more general electronic store now instead of a go grab your media store.
And it could be, and we'll see how it works. Obviously, they've done a lot of research into this, and they think it's a smart direction for their business to go. But we've seen that over the years of all these tech stores and things kind of changing up their models and wound up going out of business very, very shortly thereafter. I don't know the particulars of, their business situation or their business standing, so I really don't want to speak to that. But just from a person who, to your point, loved going on like a Tuesday or a Friday when the latest movies or TV show seasons would drop. I love that. I still have quite a vast collection of, one thing I loved collecting were TV series. Mm-hmm. So I had like the first 20 seasons of The Simpsons. I still have them all on DVD. I have, full series of some of my favorite TV shows in the past on DVD still, and I'm glad that I still have that. But also you have to consider, like, we're moving away from like those players even being an option, because if you look at like video game consoles now, they're not only selling physical media versions where you can still put CDs in and DVDs and Blu-rays and all of that, but you're getting digital only versions of these gaming consoles, which a lot of people use to stream media with, because a lot of people use their gaming consoles as their media streaming devices, whether it's, you have, PlayStation with their version, Xbox with their version. You even have like major companies like Apple putting out things like Apple TV, their physical TV, or Amazon Fire, like just streaming media devices. The days of buying physical media and playing it through these types of devices are virtually gone. I can't tell you the last time I even looked at trying to buy a Blu-ray player. So maybe Best Buy is telling us, hey, this is the way that we're trying to stay ahead of the curve. So this is the way the media landscape is going. This is how people are choosing to consume their media. I don't know. Like, it's sad, but it's also like, it just could just be a response to the, purchasing habits of people now. I don't know. Like, I have mixed emotions about it, because like you said, we are, not to age ourselves too much, but we come from that age of, it was a whole experience going and either renting a movie or
Blockbuster.
Exactly. R.I.P. Blockbuster. I miss you so much. You have no idea.
It always felt like it was an event to go get a new movie or a new video game or something. Like it was something that you and your family went out and did it. And yeah, it's weird not to have physical media out there. We're even seeing a downfall of the streaming side, though. With last month there was a lot of controversy with Sony saying that some of the Discovery items that you have purchased through streaming would no longer be yours. That basically you lost all access, you can't watch it anymore. So it's really showing the downside if we keep everything digital and streaming. So there is kind of a weird balance that we're looking at now. Now Sony and Discovery came to an agreement, so everyone is no longer going to be affected like that. You've got your media, you can watch what you had, but how are we going to see that in the future? What happens when a studio decides, well, you're not allowed to sell the streaming rights to this series or this film that you've been selling on your digital marketplace? The consumer no longer has access to that. So there definitely is a strange time ahead as we look at ownage rights when it comes to digital media, with physical media disappearing from stores.
Yeah, licensing is going to be a very hot topic of conversation, I can imagine, in the future, because you see so many of these properties jump from one place to the next, and you see some of these places buying up IP left and right, and we own this but not this, and this company owns this, and this company owns that, and these companies are merging. Like it's kind of a hot mess, and it's a lot to keep track of right now. Yep. But to your point, yeah, a lot of the world of these types of licensing and media rights ownership, do you get a one-time purchase and get to keep it forever, but how do you watch it, kind of thing? Do we still support those types of things? It's going to be interesting to see how companies navigate that moving forward, because we are moving to so much digital everything, right? Because it's the entire world is going digital for literally everything, and it's kind of wild to see where we're going to be, like where we've gone from 10 years to now even has been a giant leap. But what do we do 10 years in the future? You know what I mean? Are we gonna have physical, not to get off topic, but are we gonna have physical currency still? You know what I mean? Or is it all gonna be digital money transactions, and physical media and all of those things are gonna be non-existent? So like what is it gonna look like in 10 years? I'm both excited and curious and concerned, and kind of all of the emotions when it comes to this.
Definitely a big shift with everything, as we mentioned, with AI, with physical media, with digital media, with everything. Like there's definitely a big shift happening in the world when it comes to how we take in everything.
Yeah, it's crazy, man, but it's just one of those things. You kind of just got to roll with it, and we're kind of at the mercy of much more powerful people making those types of decisions. So just stay tuned and hold on to those precious physical media items as long as you can, because it seems like it's definitely coming to an end. So just keep on fighting the good fight, I guess. That's a terrible way of saying it, but you know what I mean? Like it's so weird. It's going to make us sound very get off my lawn, kind of like okay boomer kind of things. Probably me. But it's a very topical conversation,
and it's heavily related with the entertainment industry because of how, streaming services have blown up over the last year, but now they're finding out the hardships and the struggles when it comes to having, because we went from having satellite and cable television to, we still have that, but we have streaming television, we have streaming movies, and we have streaming everything, but they're finding out how much it is costing to run and have and licensing. And so there's definitely a big change happening within that streaming realm, as well, as they see how everything is going and what it's costing them, because we're seeing rates and going up. We're seeing, Disney and Warner Brothers have cleared off TV shows and movies to save money off their streaming platform. So there's definitely a big need to still have that physical when we see how easily it is for you to lose the streaming.
And to that point, it's getting so costly for these studios that, it's gonna, here I go sounding like a boomer again. Back in I'm getting into that point now where I'm just miserable at everything. But to that point, back in the day, we would have these TV series that would be on for 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years, like shows like Seinfeld and Friends and, Frasier and all of those like sitcoms back in the day would last, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 seasons. And now you get these shows on Netflix that are getting like pretty popular and super popular, but they're only lasting for 2 or 3 seasons. Or if you're lucky in the case of like a Stranger Things getting like 5 or 6 seasons, like that's rare nowadays. And it's just that goes into things. And how much like do you negotiate as an actor getting paid, based on media sales and things like that, that's going to go away now because of streaming. Like,
and the same with the amount of seasons going down. They're shifting to lower amounts of episodes per season. Yeah. So you've got 20. You used to have the standard being kind of 20 to 24 episodes for a standard season, and now with the streaming setup, it's around 10 episodes that you're seeing. If you're lucky, 10 to 12. Some of them are only giving you 5 or 6. So there's definitely a big shift on how all entertainment is being produced, consumed, and it's a very different time with how entertainment is going.
Yeah, I mean, it's, we'll continue to talk about it here, obviously, as these things evolve with, the media landscape and everything, and we'll continue to talk about it every week here. I'm looking forward to that, but it's crazy to think about if you just really sit down and look at how much it's changed over the last few years.
Yep.
Our top 2023 films. So 2023 was a great year for film. We go to the theaters very frequently. We like to go almost every week. There are going to be films on our list that we just haven't seen. We can't speak to the fact that they're good or not. So we're not going to do that. And we're going to talk about the 5 films that we enjoyed the most in the theater in 2023. So Brad, why don't you start us off with your top 5, number 5.
Starting off at number 5 with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Being a big Marvel and DC fan, having this final wrap up of the Guardians story was really well done to me. It was you got closure on the group if we never see them again, if we see a different group. You got laughter, you got emotion, you got something heartfelt, and in the end just had such enjoyment watching this movie.
Yeah, it was a great film. I really enjoyed it too. I didn't have it in my top 5, but it was definitely a great send-off for a group of characters that really nobody saw getting as popular as it did. Mm-hmm. They were a very niche comic book corner of the Marvel comic universe, right? So they weren't necessarily the most popular team, and everybody was kind of scratching their heads when this group got announced, but they really took off. James Gunn did an incredible job of making this a tentpole Marvel film. This is a big deal when these movies came out because they got so popular. Mix of great music, emotion, humor, fun stories, and I really enjoyed the film too, but I didn't quite have it in my top 5.
Yep, because he's wrong.
And that's fair. But for number 5 for me for 2023, I actually picked TMNT Mutant Mayhem. It was so much fun. I am a lifelong Ninja Turtles fan. I admit it. I have dressed up as Ninja Turtles for several years in my youth for Halloween, going trick-or-treating, not as an adult, that I'm willing to put on social media, but that's between us. Anyway, the film was a ton of fun. It's a fresh take on the Ninja Turtles. It's animated. The animation style was really cool. The voice cast was incredible. It's taking them as actual teenagers and not like adults cosplaying as teenagers.
It's the first one you really felt that these are teenage characters.
Right, and it's a really fun story. I had an absolute blast seeing this in theaters. It was so fun. Seth Rogen did a really good job of writing this story, giving us a brand new, potentially set up universe. I knew there's going to be TV shows, video games, another movie. It's going to be like an all interconnected thing, and I'm very excited to see what they do with it. Yep. But this movie was a great kickoff to all of that, and I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it too. I mean, especially I got to take my girls because I still remember going back to the 90s of seeing the very first live action Teenage Mutant Turtles as a kid and being brought to the theater. So I had a similar fun experience like that with taking my girls to see it. It wasn't in my top 5. It's still one of the more fun, entertaining films that I saw last year, and I am same as well. Growing up in the 80s and 90s, Turtles was like the lifeblood of little boys in the 80s and 90s. Like, you just had to love Turtles.
You're such a great girl, Dad.
Thank you.
You really are.
He told me he wasn't going to try to make me cry on camera, so let's move on.
Too late. Number 4. We actually have the same number 4 for both of us, which is surprising and not surprising because we have similar taste in film, but I think we both agreed that this was a really, really good film, and that was Godzilla -1. It came out towards the very end of the year, and it was so well made. The cinematic, from them making it on such a small budget, the fact that it still felt like a big film, and it was so well told. It was such a great story that I was absolutely blown away by the quality of the film. Just
apparently under $15 million to do a Godzilla movie.
Right. And the CGI in the film felt like you, for the most part, like you were watching a big budget film. At certain points in the film, it does feel a little bit like you could tell it's on a smaller budget, but the story, it didn't take anything away from it. I enjoyed it just as much as I do some of these bigger tentpole, giant, big budget films, and I just absolutely love the story that they told.
And they gave a really good feel of Godzilla being a powerful creature, destructive creature. Like, you got to see it just wreck and destroy things, being nearly unstoppable. And so it gave you a great sense of Godzilla as a character, but also letting the human aspect shine through of their struggles and stuff that they're dealing with real life outside of Godzilla. But you have this creature that's, coming to potentially destroy your livelihood, and how they bond together and come together to find that resolution, to try to figure out how can we as people find a way forward with a creature that's nearly unstoppable.
Right. And don't let the fact that it's shot entirely in Japanese with English subtitles deter you from watching the film. If you're a fan of those old school monster, Godzilla, King Kong type films, it's an incredible throwback to that. We had such a good time going to see it. I was genuinely blown away by how much I actually enjoyed it, because I'm going into the film, seeing it in the theater, we're like, okay, this could be, we love Godzilla anyway, but let's see how this feels. And it really felt, that old school monster movie, like big kaiju type films, that it was so much fun. We really enjoyed it. It's a very serious film, and it has serious topics, but it was still very enjoyable from a cinema viewing experience, I feel.
Yeah, you got a solid story out of it. You got some great action. And it was just a really enjoyable film overall. Now, coming in at number 3 for me was The Creator. Now, this was an original sci-fi film that, kind of like Godzilla Minus One, was a lower budget, smaller film, filmed on the small Sony, I forget the Sony camera that was filmed on. It's not a typical film camera that you would expect a movie to be filmed on. And they told a really unique story. Of course, most sci-fi, you've had so much trends that have been done, so there's some things that are not as unique, some things that are. But it really told a solid story, and the little girl who played the main character, the main heart of the story, she was so incredible at what she did, especially being a girl dad and having, some of the lines that she delivered towards the end was just like, all right, you got me. And it was there was a lot of heart behind this one as well.
Yeah, it was really fun. I enjoyed going to see it too. It's rare, and I hate saying it, but it's so rare nowadays in film that we get some of these really original, never before done kind of new, fresh take on science fiction from a theater perspective. And it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it too. Like I said, I didn't put it in my top 5, but if I had a top 10, it would absolutely be on it. It's a ton of fun to watch. If you can carve out a couple hours to sit down and watch it, I highly recommend it, especially if you're looking for something fresh, something, not necessarily attached to an existing franchise. This kind of its own standalone film. It is so worth a view and a time and investment, in my opinion. And, supporting those types of films gets more of those types of films made, right? So if people flock to see these types of films, it becomes a potential franchise, or it allows for more of that fresh story being told and being exposed to a higher audience that a lot of people are craving, and for good reason, right? So it's one I couldn't recommend enough going to see.
Yep. Now, the next one was on your list, is on my list, but in a different spot.
Mm-hmm. So my number 3 for the year was Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer was such a good film. I love Christopher Nolan movies. One of my favorite trilogies of all time is the Dark Knight trilogy. So well done. Christopher Nolan makes absolutely incredible, epic, big films. And this is about, the creation of the atomic bomb in World War II, right? And, all the story surrounding it. On its own, it doesn't necessarily feel like it could be an absolute big, epic, kind of biopic-y like type story, but it's told in such a brilliant way and it's shot in such a brilliant way. And the cast is absolutely incredible. I mean, you've got Robert Downey Jr., you got Cillian Murphy, you've got Florence Pugh, you've got Emily Blunt, I believe, is in the film as well. Like, so many talented actors in such a huge film, and it's so well done. It's long. Don't get me wrong. It's a Christopher Nolan film. You're getting a long film out of this, but it never, to me, in my experience going and seeing it in the theater, felt like a long, boring film that we're like, okay, I'm ready to wrap this up and get back home. But it never felt that way to me. Yeah. Like, it was so well done.
You see, I had Oppenheimer on my number 2 spot. But I said, Christopher Nolan is a masterful filmmaker. He goes to the heart and the core of storytelling and filmmaking to really make things more unique. It's all about the story, the process of making the film, and telling Oppenheimer's story in this way, telling it, basically the whole movie being told from his perspective. That's where I kind of disagree with some of the reviewers and people out there who thought we should have seen the bombs, being dropped and stuff. You were seeing his reaction, his feeling, how those people there who made the bomb, how they were feeling about what they just did. So it's really going at the core and the heart of, did we do the right thing? Was this something we should have done? And yeah, I agree with Josh that it was such masterful filmmaking, well acted, just all around. One of the best films of the year. And it also helped with the Barbenheimer, the mashup of Barbie and Oppenheimer coming out at the same time. They gathered so much interest in both. But I think it helped both of them so much and made it such a talking point of 2023 of having Barbenheimer. And
it was such incredibly brilliant marketing for that. It was so crazy because they're two films in a vacuum. You're like, okay, it's a biopic and a film about a doll, quote unquote, about a doll, right? Like, is it supposed to bring a ton of money? And those are two of the 3 highest grossing films of the year. Mm-hmm. The marketing was incredible. Both movies were a lot of fun. Unfortunately, Barbie didn't make either of our top 5. Spoiler alert for what's coming up. But they are, that film was also in our honorable mentions, best of. If we had a top 10, it would probably be number 6 on mine. It was
a great film that was done in such a smart, interesting, unique way as well.
Sure, and like I said, not taking anything away from it at all, but for the specifics of Oppenheimer, just from a straight film perspective, I enjoyed it so much, and I'm glad you had it as high as you did as well. Mm-hmm. So it was number 2 for you. So number 2 for me was Killers of the Flower Moon, the Martin Scorsese film, Leonardo DiCaprio. I know Brad hasn't necessarily seen it yet.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to see it, so this more than likely what I love Scorsese and Leo and everything else. I just haven't had the opportunity to see it, so it didn't make my list simply from that fact.
I genuinely feel like when you do see it, you will put it very high on your list. It is incredibly well done. It is such a good film. It's one of Scorsese's, in my opinion. It's one of his better films. It's gonna get a lot of awards I know we're getting into the award season now. It's gonna get a lot of awards. Wouldn't surprise me if DiCaprio won for Best Actor. The story was just so well done, so well told. I don't want to spoil it because it is still a kind of a fresher film, but if you get the opportunity to watch it, go out of your way. I know, spoiler alert, we're going to talk about it dropping on streaming services very soon. So if you haven't gone in the theater, you can still catch it. But while it's still in there, if you've got time, go watch it. Go check it out and really take in a Scorsese film. I think is better done in the theater as a viewing experience as opposed to, like, I know he released the film on Netflix, which was good, but those films are meant to be seen in a bigger theater.
Scorsese, Nolan, all of those type of directors, you're meant to see that in a theater experience. Like, it's made for the theater.
Absolutely. So I can't recommend it enough. I'd like to talk to you more about it, but I really don't want to spoil the film for you because I know you really are looking forward to it. Right. So I'm not going to do that here. But to round out our lists, we both actually, this is kind of funny, we actually have the exact same film as the most enjoyable film in 2023. And what is it?
Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So this was, again, we're big Marvel, DC comic book guys, but leaving that alone, it's such a well-made film, such a great story being told, but also just the sheer incredible amount of technical prowess that this film has. There's so many different animation styles, frame rates, just anything you want to look at that's blended together in such a beautiful way to make a film that is kind of hard to forget about after you watch it. Like, it may be an animated Spider-Man movie, but it is done so incredibly well.
Well, and I agree, and I can't agree more. And I think a testament to how good this film is not many animated films get nominated for Best Picture. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's getting that buzz, and it's gotten those accolades for a reason. It is such a good film. If you haven't seen it, my God, what are you doing? Like, go see this film like now, wherever you can watch it. And it's so well done. It's got so much heart. It's got such a brilliantly told story. It's the second part of a 3-part movie franchise, which, to be fair, as a sequel, respect. Like, you can have, the fun talk is the sequel ever better than the original? I love the first one as well. I love this one even more, which I didn't think I would, but I really did. I'm not going to lie. I didn't go see it every time with you, but I saw it like at least 3 times in the theater, and I don't really do that a lot, but I enjoyed it that much. Like, I went and saw it 3 times in the theaters. That's how much I enjoyed this film.
Never text me.
Never texted him.
How dare you, sir?
I own that.
How dare you, sir? But yeah, it's a fantastic movie. Like, whether you're into comic books or not, I mean, it's going to appeal more if you're into the comic book area of film, the actual books, anything else. But there's such heart, emotion, and just, like I said, I'm a designer, seeing all the technical aspects of it just kind of blew me away. Like, this was a feat of filmmaking that they should all be extremely proud of.
Absolutely. And I like to throw a special shout out, if I could, to Donald Glover for his cameo in that film. So good. It makes sense if you've seen it. It's been out for several months now. I'll spoil it a little bit. But
spoiler.
Donald Glover's in the film. Go see it.
But yeah, 2023 was a great year of film. Like, the box office itself saw some weird, odd things where films that you expected to be making a lot of money did not do that well. Some really good films that should have been seen more didn't make a whole lot. But overall, we saw a lot of big tentpole movies. We also saw a lot of great independent movies. Like, another movie that didn't make our top 5 that was great, there's The Iron Claw. That was a really well done movie. Forget a word there. And so there's just a lot of smaller films and bigger films that just made for a really exciting 2023, but it also sets us up for a really exciting 2024.
Sure it does. And to kind of put a button on some of the top films that we didn't talk about in 2023, I know, like, American Fiction is one you and I were both looking forward to seeing. I know a lot of people really enjoyed that film. We talked about it before we recorded, but Past Lives, the Korean film that's getting a lot of Oscar and Golden Globe. Easy for me to say. Now I'm flubbing lines too.
We'll be professional one day.
One of these days. It's not
That's
today.
not
it's
today.
Not today. It's fine.
We're sorry.
But it's getting a lot of Golden Globe love, Oscar buzz. I hear it's an absolutely beautifully told story, an incredibly made film. I'm really looking forward to watching that. I'll probably watch that in the next week or so. Yeah. I might talk to you about it on here then, but those are the types of films that we really enjoy as well, but didn't get a chance to just because it came out towards the end of the year. A lot of stuff was happening and we just didn't get to see it, but those are films we actually do get to watch too. Yeah, so 2024 is going to be a big year for film. There's going to be, as we've touched on before, a lot of sequels, a lot of franchise films getting, the next chapter in all their stories in. There's going to be some pretty interesting new and original stories, I would think, in 2024, and we could touch on some of those as well. But I know there's one film in particular that both you and I are really, and I can emphasize that really a lot.
He's not excited
for films that's coming out in 2024. If you want to touch on that specifically, like, what film is like at the top of both of our lists?
I don't know.
You don't know?
What is it?
Well, good night, everybody. No, I'm just kidding.
Now, that would be Deadpool 3 again. We said we're big Marvel and DC guys. Deadpool 3, it's also, other than just being something we're really looking forward to, because, I mean, you had us at Ryan Reynolds is back as Deadpool, Hugh Jackman is returning as Wolverine, and we're getting him in his suit. Spoiler, it's everywhere, it's known. He's wearing at least one, but more likely multiple Wolverine suits. But this is a kind of a monumental film for the MCU. We know that the last few years it's been a little hit or miss with things, and this is going to be setting us off into the new direction, the new way forward. This is kind of almost the middle part of this saga, and Deadpool 3 is going to catapult us into our end game.
I see what you did there, but I'm very much looking forward to this film as well, right? And it's so cool because when you heard that Marvel was acquiring all of the Fox properties and Deadpool came with it, everybody kind of, I don't necessarily want to say sigh and rolled their eyes, but there was a lot of that because what made Deadpool so great is the fact that he is such a not suitable for work type of comic book character, right? Those films are very gory, very graphic, very vulgar, particularly in both violence and language. And Disney, to their credit, I think, they may not get enough credit for it, is allowing it to continue to be an R-rated film without losing any of the qualities that make it, the successful property that it has been. And to Ryan Reynolds' credit, with the brilliant marketing he's done, basically peer pressuring Hugh Jackman to come out of Wolverine retirement to do this film is such a stroke of genius. It's going to make so much money. I wouldn't be surprised if it winds up being the highest grossing film of 2024.
If it's not, it's going to be very well. It has to be top 3 if it's not the very top.
Yeah, I mean, this is the bridging of two worlds that we've wanted forever, right? The highlight of the old late 90s, early 2000s X-Men films where Hugh Jackman is Wolverine. We thought he put the character to bed in what I consider to be one of the most brilliant send-offs for a comic book character ever with Logan.
Logan got robbed of so many, it should have been part of so many awards, won so many awards. It was brilliantly done.
Yeah, and it was so good. And he swore Wolverine off after that. And Ryan Reynolds, to his point, like I said, peer pressured him basically into coming back. I say that tongue in cheek, but, obviously the check was probably fat, right? So, he's not doing it out of the kindness of his heart, but the fact that we're getting a proper MCU Wolverine is so cool. It's such amazing fan service that they're doing. And I will be right there day one, first showing, give me Deadpool, inject that goodness into my body. I'm ready for it. Yes, I said it that it's going to be awkward, but we're going to roll with it anyway. Another film that I'm really looking forward to in particular is Furiosa, a Mad Max story. I love the Mad Max movies, even the ones that have been made recently, and the next iteration of that film is going to involve Anya Taylor-Joy, Charlize Theron, and telling a story about Furiosa, one of the great characters in the Mad Max saga, and that film, based on the trailers alone, looks very exciting. Those films are always made, I don't want to say differently, but they don't look like your typical cinematic
They're
film.
so unique. There's nothing else that you could really put out there compared to the Mad Max movies. And you got Chris Hemsworth trying his best not to look very Thor-y, but it kind of does. But I'm looking forward to that too. They've always been fun. The latest ones that they've done, even back to the Mel Gibson's movies, they've always been a unique, interesting, fun series that you can, in some ways, tells a good story, but you can also just turn your brain off and just enjoy the insane splendor that is Mad Max.
It's fun. It's one of those films you can just go, put your worries away, just enjoy a good fun chaotic story, and I'm very much looking forward to that.
And another film that we're getting here in 2024 that we were supposed to have at the end of 2023 is Dune Part 2. That is a big movie for me this year. I loved the first film. Of course, it's the first of a new remake of Dune. But it was so well done, and I'm really looking forward to Part 2 and seeing where they go. And there's also a potential, might be a few years away now, that we get a Part 3. But at least going into this one, I'm excited to see how they wrap up these first 2 parts.
Yeah, the trailer looks pretty epic for it, too. I know it's being shown in front of pretty much every movie you go see now in theaters. And the trailer looks incredible. It's a big, epic science fiction film. It's, a star-studded cast as well. So many big names in this film. Huge cast. And it's going to make, hopefully, a lot of money, too. But it's definitely one that I'm looking forward to as well. It's going to be a must viewing experience too.
Yep, and especially seeing it in theaters. That is one of the movies we talk about that just made to see the biggest screen with the biggest sound, the best experience you can get out of it.
Absolutely. Another film that I'm personally looking forward to, and it's one that's not like a sequel or a reboot or anything like that. It's a movie called If. It's the trailer for it leaked probably the end of the year, I want to say, within the last few weeks. But it's about imaginary friends, but it's starring Ryan Reynolds. So Ryan Reynolds showing up twice. It's going to be a good year for him.
Directed by John Krasinski, who just I don't know anybody who doesn't like him. Jim from The Office. Everybody fell in love with him from The Office. He's gone on to do horror movies that have been really well received. But this was out of his mind of finding these lost imaginary friends and finding them a place to go. So I'm really excited for it too. As a dad, it's a family-friendly movie about these imaginary friends. You got Steve Carell voicing one of them. You got a pretty star-studded cast in there as well, but it's a unique, different story that's coming out.
Oh yeah, that's definitely going to be one of the ones that you're taking all the kids to, and for those of us without kids, we're still going to go see it as well. I mean, obviously Ryan Reynolds, in my humble opinion, can do no wrong. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing that as well. And, there's so many other films that we can't get into for the rest of the year. There's so many sequels that we haven't touched on, like Bad Boys, a sequel to Twisters of all things, a sequel to Twister called Twisters of all things. Don't know if that's necessary, but we're still going to see it anyway. Gladiator 2, take that information what you will.
I'm curious to see what happens with Gladiator, because the first Gladiator is one of my favorite movies. But
absolutely.
Did it need a sequel? Did its legacy just need to be left alone?
Sure, and that's a debate I'm sure we'll have when we go to review it, which we will do for this podcast as well. We also got sequels to Ghostbusters, the reboot that was absolutely brilliant that happened a couple of years ago. We got the sequel to that coming out. We've got Madam Web, some more Kraven the Hunter, a couple more Marvel movies that are coming out that are Sony produced, that aren't necessarily Disney and Marvel produced, that are going to come out as well. A lot of really fun, interesting films that we're going to definitely review and talk a lot about in the upcoming episodes throughout this year, and we hope you join us for that. The first one we're actually doing to kick off the year that I'm very excited to see, that we're going to review next week on this episode for episode 2, is Jason Statham's new movie, The Beekeeper. I love Jason Statham. He's another one of those actors who none of his films are probably going to win major awards, but they're so fun. Like, I love Crank. Crank's one of my favorite, nobody really talks about it, but Crank's one of my favorite, action films that come out in the last, 10 to 15 years. It's such a fun, just turn your brain off and watch stuff blow up kind of film.
Yeah, you kind of know with Jason Statham movies, you know what you're getting. And that's you need those escape movies, those action movies where you can turn your brain off and just live and love the absurdity, the craziness, the insanity that happens. And the guy knows how to do action.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He's so much fun to watch. And that's going to be our review for next week, and we're very much looking forward to that. But in the interim, in the upcoming weeks, what do we have coming out streaming that people can catch? Because there's a lot of stuff getting ready to drop on streaming services at the beginning of the year as well. What do we have coming up?
Well, along with reviewing The Beekeeper, we're going to check out all 5 episodes of Marvel's Echo that is dropping this week on January 9th on Disney+. Now, if you haven't set up your Disney Plus accounts to have the mature rating, you have to have that set to be able to watch Echo. But we're really looking forward to that. It looks like it's kind of throwing back to the Netflix Marvel series, and so that's one that we're really looking forward to checking out. You can also find Ridley Scott's Napoleon will be on demand starting January 9th. And one that Josh has watched, but I haven't watched yet, Killers of the Flower Moon, will be on Apple TV Plus starting January 12th.
Yep, and also for those of you with kids, particularly this guy here, there's going to be 10 brand new episodes of the show Bluey. You know what? I actually really enjoy the show Bluey. And I don't have kids, but I've seen a few episodes. It's a really well-made show. I can see why people are losing their minds over it.
Even if I didn't have kids, I'd be watching Bluey straight up.
Right?
It's one of the most brilliantly done shows, and it's a kid's show that episodes are 7 minutes each. But there are several episodes that are very deep, emotional, touching, or just hysterically done. As a dad, it's great to watch with my kids, but even without, it's so well done. So my kids are really excited about those 10 new episodes coming out, because we've watched every episode at least 10 times.
And they'll be out January 12th on Disney Plus as well. So definitely make sure you check that out as well.
Yeah. I think we made it. We
made
it through episode 1.
Made it.
A few technical hiccups. It's going to happen. but we'll get better.
Yeah, I feel good about it. I feel good about it. We've done good. We hope you've enjoyed it. We hope you've enjoyed this episode as well. Please don't forget to check us out on all forms of social media. Check out we'llbringthepopcorn.com where you can get all of your latest news and updates from us when we'll be dropping new episodes. Check us out on YouTube as well. We'll Bring the Popcorn. Hit that like button, subscribe to where you get the newest videos as they drop each and every week here. And we'll be back next week for another brand new episode. We'll be reviewing Jason Statham's The Beekeeper and the first 5 episodes, actually all 5 episodes of Marvel's Echo on Disney+. So we hope you'll tune in for that. And thank you so much for tuning in to the very first episode of We'll Bring the Popcorn. We've had a great time, and we'll see you next week.